With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
What is going on, gunfighters? Welcome, and hopefully welcome back to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about gunfighting the right way, with God at the center and real-world first-hand experience. Today we're going to be talking about the best gun for a bailout bag, for a bailout kit. Now, if you've listened for any length of time to this or Alpha Male podcast, you'll know that I'm big on the bailout kit, baby bug out bag, whatever you want to call it. Imagine you just had a long week at work. It's Friday afternoon. You had to do a bunch of extra work because something got screwed up that wasn't your fault. You finally hop in your car. You click on your already downloaded Alpha Male or Gunfighter Life podcast episode, and you pull out onto a main street. Traffic's moving slow and then it just stops and you're right in the middle of a block, nowhere to turn, cars in front of you, cars behind you. You think no big deal, just an accident, I'll just have to wait longer to get home. You're a little ticked off. You start hearing sirens in the background. More and more, but they're not getting very close. You think, it must have been some bad accident. And you start to think something's a little wrong. You pause the podcast. Because you listen to the tactical tips of the day, your window is slightly cracked so you can hear what's going on outside. You start to hear faint screaming and gunfire. Then all of a sudden, from not very far in front of you, a large group of military-age males with face masks start dragging people out of their car, rummaging through their car. The men are armed. People that resist get beaten. And you see how far they are ahead and how fast they're moving, and you realize you don't have much time. You can't move your car. You're literally blocked in on every side by other cars. Your bug out bag's in the trunk, no time for that. Your center console, you have your bailout kit, your baby bug out bag. Grab the shoulder strap, throw it around you, and hightail it out of the car. What's in that bag? Of course, a tourniquet or two, essentials, but what gun would be best in that bag? A bailout gun. I was thinking about that and thinking that it might make a good topic for an episode. I talked about laptop bag guns, and this will be similar, or more specific to this smaller size. Also, in that I spoke in generalities. Today I want to get specific about specific makes and models of guns and even accessories for some top choices in 2022, 2023 for guns that should be in that kit. With that, I'll roll out of the preamble and roll into the bio. If you want to skip it, skip around 3 minutes 45 seconds to 4 minutes in. We'll talk about some cool bailout guns. Who am I? A question we should all ask ourselves. I am, first and foremost, a servant of God, made in His very own image, a follower of Jesus Christ, a simple man called by God to the Great Commission to share the good news of Jesus Christ. Next, a little bit about my background and what God has allowed me to do and blessed me to do in life. Grew up what most would consider very poor in the backwoods of the southeastern and mid-Atlantic United States. Hunting and fishing. Joined the Marine Corps at 17. Did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. So a decorated Marine Corps combat veteran. Infantry assaultman. After the combat tours, I was an urban warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. I also served in the U.S. Army both full-time and part-time National Guard. Also a veteran of law enforcement. I served with L.A.P.D. I was a sworn peace officer, a cop for L.A.P.D. I worked regular patrol assignments and more specialized assignments. One of those more specialized assignments was warrant service, fugitive recovery. Also had some other law enforcement roles. I am an F.B.I. certified firearms instructor and been certified by another 3-letter government agency in a lot of firearms and training things. I've also been a private contractor, worked in the private sector pertaining to tactics and gunfighting and protecting America from enemies foreign and domestic. I served as the commander of a tactical team to stop active shooters in a large metropolitan area. That was our primary mission, to stop active shooters, which sadly are a thing in America today. I've also been blessed to do quite a bit of competition shooting. Started my first formal competitions even before joining the Marine Corps at 17. I had won more shooting competitions than I can remember. I have competed in all manner of disciplines in shooting. I've been blessed to be a state rifle and pistol champion, West Coast regional champion. Like I said, been blessed to win more shooting competitions than I can remember. Mentioned hunting. I've hunted to put meat on the table starting when I was a child. I've also been a professional big game hunter and guide, hunting and slaying all manner of beast. And I don't apologize for that. Humbled to be the host of 3 podcasts. Simple Man Sermons, Alpha Male Podcast, and Gunfighter Life. Obviously, as things not mentioned, I've been blessed to do many other things. But, again, first and foremost, I'm a servant of God, a believer and follower of the Bible, the Word, Jesus Christ. And I don't apologize for that. With that, let's transition into today's topic. Gunfighters, let's talk about the bailout kit, the bailout bag, the satchel, whatever you want to call it. Now, I do sell these at goodshepherdtraining.com. I don't want to turn this into an infomercial, but I'm not making this up so that you'll buy one. I've used one of these for years and years. I use it in the country. I use it in the city. I use one as the commander of a tactical team, and a lot of my men use them too. The bailout bag, the baby bug out bag, whatever you want to call it. There's a reason these are on the website, because I believe in the concept is a good, sound concept in a lot of different circumstances. As mentioned in that scenario in the beginning, if you're stuck in traffic and there's mobs of people or riots and looting and you have to get out right now, it's a bailout bag, a baby bug out bag, because the bug out bag in your trunk that you don't have time to get doesn't do you much good if you don't have it on you, just like the gun that's home in your safe. If you're at work, that gun might as well be on the moon as far as you're concerned, as far as physical gunfighting ability goes. And this is not a new concept. If you hearken back to, let's say, the American Revolution, you think about that modern Minuteman. Now, obviously, I wasn't there, but I've seen a lot of artistic depictions. They have their Pennsylvania or Kentucky rifle. They have their powder horn. They have their tri-cornered hat. And a lot of times slung under their shoulder, they have one of these satchels to carry their essentials. They're highly mobile. The Minutemen were like the quick reaction force, the QRF of the time. And they use these. And when I was a QRF, a quick reaction force, I used these. There's a reason. There's a reason you see similar bags of this all throughout military and militaria as far as like surplus gear goes, because they're useful and handy. I didn't invent this concept, but as far as I know, I'm the preeminent one kind of pushing this concept, this baby bug out bag or bailout kit versus a big bag that you carry all the time. Now, sometimes I have to remember where I am and where most of you guys are. I'm living off grid in the middle of the forest, catching fish and eating them, bathing in a river. One of my chores for the
When we started writing our thoughts down on paper, it opened up endless possibilities. Ideas could grow beyond the borders of the mind, and it changed the world. Somewhere along the way, we lost touch with paper, distracted by devices made for every purpose except for thinking and focus. On edge, waiting for the next notification. But what if new technology didn't pull us away from paper, but brought us closer to it? Listen. That's not paper. It's the sound of the new Remarkable Paper Pro, rewriting the future. A paper tablet with a true color ink display, gentle reading light, and unheard of tactility. With digital features for taking notes, thinking, and organizing, without any distractions. Paper is about to change the world again. Get your paper tablet at remarkable.com today.
Day after this is going down to the nearest creek and hauling up water for use. No cell service, no grid power. You get the picture. But most of you guys don't live like that, and for a large chunk of my life, I didn't live like that. You heard the bio, L.A.P.D, the commander of a tactical team in a large metropolitan area. I realize that a lot of you guys live in the suburbs and work in the city. I remember the people hives. I remember that environment. So what are some scenarios that these bags, just a few examples that they might come in handy? How about your car's having trouble? Like I said, you live in the suburbs, work in the city. The mechanic you use is not in the greatest part of town because real estate's cheaper there. It just makes sense. Now your mechanic's a good one, but he's in the inner city because, rent's cheap there because nobody wants to be there. You're going to drop your car off there and you have to wait a minute for an Uber. And they're going to take you to work, and hopefully you'll pick your car up and do the same thing on the way home. Well, in that scenario, you're only going to have, just look at what you're going to grab and put in that Uber. One of these bailout bags, a baby bug out bag, is super handy in that scenario. Or how about, maybe you're in a stage in your life where you're dating. I do not envy you. I love my wife very much. But let's say the woman in your life, whomever, wants to go into the city and have dinner. For whatever reason, logistically, you're going to hop into her car. She's not the female version of John Wick. She doesn't have a bunch of guns in her car or really any preparedness stuff at all. Maybe you've talked her into carrying a spare gallon of gasoline. A small, discreet bag like this you just grab and throw under your seat in the front seat of the car. Not a big deal. Lots of people have little bags. Doesn't raise any eyebrows. And while you're in the city, at least you're not, let's just say you'd be more prepared than you would be without it. And not just for the crazy stuff, car accidents are a real thing, and a lot of people get really injured in car accidents. It'd be nice to have a tourniquet or two. How about you're doing a short business trip in the city and you want a small handy bag like this with upgraded firepower and some supplies you can throw in the hotel safe. Probably not throwing your bug out bag in a hotel safe. Well, let's talk about country a little bit. Hopefully a lot of you guys like to get out in the country and do stuff in the country. This is a bag, say you want to go fishing. Well, right now I'm in the Pacific Northwest. The berries are everywhere and ripe, which is awesome. Love going out with the wife and foraging different stuff and making jams. She's really gotten into that. We probably have enough jam in our little tiny dwelling to bathe in. But anyway, this Pacific Northwest, it's remote. There are bears all around. We've had bears come into camp. Let's say we're going out berry picking or we're going out, let's say fishing. Let's say you're into fishing and you're going to be walking the creek banks, which are also a lot of times where there's a ton of berries. You might run into a bear. This is a little bag you can grab, throw it over your shoulder. Doesn't weigh a lot. You can get one of those little mini micro tackle boxes, which are really cool, and throw it in there. You have a few extra, whatever your lure of choice is. Throw a pair of needle nose pliers in there that come in super handy in fishing. Also have a big, powerful handgun in there. Maybe you leave the satchel unsnapped so you can draw it from your chest. In case you do tangle with a mama bear and cubs you just happen to stumble across when you're trying to wade in between the creek and the briars of the berry patch. And then, there's a baby cub, and there's mama bear. There's all kinds of scenarios that bags like this come in handy. I mentioned I was the commander of a tactical team in the bio, and I was. And we protected a lot of VIPs. I'm talking A-list celebrities. And when I say A-list, I mean like the biggest of the big celebrities that would come, under our protection. Also worked with the Secret Service. My role as the commander and my men's role was to stop active shooters, prevent active shooters, to make it such a hard target. If there's a celebrity going to draw in tens of thousands of people, that's likely where the active shooter is going to be, because horribly they're about mass casualties. A lot of times those details are a long event. Getting there, running the canines, doing the bomb sniffing, setting the men up strategically where they can have the most advantage, setting up mass casualty plans and all that stuff. It might be a long way to the nearest vehicle. A little bag like this with a couple of tourniquets, even more than a couple, several tourniquets, quite a few spare magazines, and let's be honest, stuff you use all the time. An extra cell phone, like battery booster, a charging cable, and a couple of Quest bars or peanuts or whatever snack you eat, because you might be there for 8 hours, 12 hours. You can't just leave your post if people's lives might depend on you being there to go get a snack. And I used a bag like this. I've used it for years and years, and a lot of my men had bags like this, just a simple sling bag. Next to the body armor my men wore a lot, it really doesn't even add much, but it adds a lot of versatility and utility to your kit. Now I carry usually a full-size fighting handgun. But again, I try to remember my audience, and I know a lot of you guys that go around heeled, that go armed, don't generally carry day-to-day a full-size fighting handgun. You might carry a Smith & Wesson J-frame, which are great. I was just doing wind sprints in the forest, and I have my Smith & Wesson J-frame. I like a J-frame. You may carry a Ruger LCP. That's much better than not having a gun. But in that scenario where there's a mob of looters and rioters and Molotov cocktails getting thrown and whatever else, you gotta bail out of your car, I'd much rather have an LCP than nothing, but is that the only gun you want on you? I'm big on E.D.C, the stuff in your pockets, and having prepared stuff on you all the time, but is that really all that you want if you have to bail out in that scenario? You're at dinner with the girl that you're in love with in the city and something really bad happens? Is that all that you want on you, or would you like to have a few more things? That's what this kit is about. That's what this concept is about, being a modern Minuteman, standing ready at a moment's notice. All that being said, so what are my top picks? First, I should tell you what's in mine. I'll say it's not a top pick because it's been in there a while. I've had it a while. It's been in there since before the transition, and red dot optics are not what they are today. But in mine is my Beretta 92. If you've listened, you may disagree, but you'll know that I think that the Beretta 92 is the ultimate combat handgun. So what better choice to put in there? Mine is the Brigadier, which for whatever reason, the guys that know about putting optics on Berettas, like Langdon Tactical, just kind of made a name as being those people that know how to do that. For whatever reason, I guess that slide can't mount an optic. I'm not really sure why. I'm not an engineer. I wish that I could. If I were doing it now in 2022, 2023, my pick would be a Beretta M9A4 because you can mount a red dot optic on there. Especially in this configuration, in this logistical loadout scenario, I really want an optic. Would probably mount, although I don't have much experience with them, likely a big enclosed optic of good reputable manufacturer, and I would co-witness iron sights. So I'd have a Beretta M9A4. I would have a good optic co-witness with iron sights, one of the enclosed ones, although I haven't run those yet. I can see the advantages of them. I'm not really worried about the bulk of a holster. I would put a good, sturdy weapon-mounted light on there. I like Streamlight. I'm not sponsored. I don't get any kickbacks from anybody. I probably go with Streamlight, but a good weapon-mounted light on there. Hopefully with a good holster that fit all that stuff. Right now, mine is in a Bianchi UM84. It's a fantastic holster. Again, this is not a CCW holster. It keeps that gun clean. It keeps the sights from getting banged up. It keeps stuff from getting in the barrel. For whatever reason, I lost my holster, lost whatever, and went to that gun. It can turn into a hip holster. Bianchi UM84 is not a very fast holster, but it's a good holster. In that kind of scenario, It's likely going to stay in my hand for a while, or just be in the bag with the top strap off the holster and it slung across my chest. But the Beretta M9A4, a good enclosed mounted optic, co-witnessed iron sights, a good weapon mounted light, and a good police duty holster that's hard and rigid. My number one pick would probably be the Blackhawk Omnivore that mounted with whatever light that I was running, with a QD attachment on there, and have that QD attachment, the male and the female, both in there. I could run it on whatever belt or whatever kit I wanted. I'd have a few magazines of go-to defensive load. For me is a Winchester Ranger 147, Ranger T147. I'd likely have one magazine of Federal Guard Dog, and I'd have one magazine of NATO ball ammo, which is not great for defense. I would never recommend you E.D.C.ing that, but it's good for barrier penetration, and I would want that option if that's what I had. That scenario with mobs and looters and things like that, it's not unheard of that I would have to shoot into a vehicle or shoot out of my own vehicle. And if I'm shooting somebody standing outside of my vehicle from in my vehicle, I might want some more penetration. Anyway, that'd be my number one choice. My number two choice, what's lovingly referred to as the Tactical Wheaties box, the FNX 45 Tactical. This is a giant behemoth handgun. Hats off to anybody that E.D.Cs this thing and concealed carries it every day. It makes a full-size Beretta look tiny. It makes a 1911 look tiny. It is a hulk of a gun. You know what? I'm not carrying it on my hip. It's going in a bag. Most people say that the 45 is antiquated and outdated because capacity. I think this thing holds 14 rounds, if I'm not mistaken. You have a bag where you can put multiple magazines in there. And going back to that scenario where I want penetration, 230 grain military ball is a great penetrating round. It harkens back to the days when it was designed, when they were literally on horses, like cavalry on horses. People were shooting horses. That FNX 45, I would get it. I think they come already ready for an optic. If not, you can probably get it cut for an optic. But definitely I would have an optic on there. That thing is so big, I've never played around with this. I had an opportunity to buy one of those once that somebody did a bad stipple-on job for like $400 and I passed on it. Kind of wish I had bought it. But that being said, I think it's a good gun, and for this it would be a good gun. That gun is so big, I don't know if good, but if you could have a regular handheld flashlight, like one of the, well, my go-to is a Streamlight Pro Tac. It'll take the fancy CR batteries, but it'll also just run on a AA, and sometimes that's what you can find. If you could get an adapter that just clipped that onto a Picatinny rail, I would probably go with that setup. That way, if I needed to take it off and just use the light, or I would have a good handheld light in addition to the other handheld light that was in my bag. I would get, assuming it fit, and it looks like it probably would, I would mount it up under there. It would probably stick out past the muzzle, which is good, which would give me the ability for contact shots, which I like. And for that, I'd have to almost certainly get a custom Kydex holster, which today is not as hard as it used to be. Could likely find one if this was going to be your setup and get a cool custom Kydex holster. Of course, if you want to be ultra tactical, it's got to be multicam nowadays. And, you know, that's your setup. Alright, so you'll know that I am not big on striker-fired handguns. They're not my favorite. But I do realize, again, that most people are not like me and they carry usually a striker-fired handgun. So if I was going that route, if I was a Glock guy, I would first repent of my ways. But if I wasn't going to do that, I would get a Glock 34. If I could find it and wanted to be retro cool, I would get a Glock 17L, which are awesome guns for a Glock. I would get a couple of extended mags, a couple of regular flush fit mags. I'd do a similar loadout like we talked about, depending on what shot point of aim, point of impact. Usually in my experience for the Glocks, that's like the 115s and 124 grains. But I'd run something similar, Spear Gold Dot, Winchester Ranger Ts. Shot well on that gun, I might go with the Winchester Ranger T 127 plus P+. Obviously going to get it cut for an optic. I have done quite a bit of work as a gunsmith, and I have mounted quite a few optics. I do not like the Glock optics mounting system. It seems kind of like an afterthought. Not seem too stable to me. I've not been super impressed with that. If I was going to go this route, I'd probably get an older gen Glock and I would have it milled directly for whatever optic I wanted. If I was going to, let's say, mount a Trijicon RMR, which is my go-to fighting handgun optic, I would mill it directly for that with two big screws and drive it directly into that slide. No plastic adapter plates, no 4 screws, none of that. 2 big screws drilled directly into the slide. Suppressor height sights, or whatever co-witnessed well, and that's what I would go with on that. If I wasn't going with Glock and striker fire, I would probably go with the Canik Rival. The Canik Rival is an awesome gun. I am really impressed. For years, I was like, stay away from the Caniks. They're probably junk. And that's usually my advice for anything that comes out. The first couple of years it comes out, stay away from it. Canik Rival is basically a different slide cuts, but very similar. All the working mechanism is the same to whatever the older Canik tactical model is. I've seen and known enough men that run these guns that I would trust them. I've seen them beat to crap. I've seen them shot I don't know how many rounds. If you don't know, Canik kind of bought the rights, I believe, or didn't buy the rights. They just waited till the patent expired on the Smith & Wesson 99, which was kind of gun ahead of its time. It was a striker-fired handgun before they were really the cool, hot thing. It kind of died out, and Canik picked that up and ran with it, and I think they do a fantastic job. And that Canik Rival, I got a chance to handle one of those, and that's a fantastic gun. If I was doing any of this, and for all on a budget, I mean, whatever that budget is, but if I was doing this for the best value, it'd be the Canik Rival, for sure. The Canik Rival, unlike the Glocks, all the Caniks I've seen have the most robust, unless you're getting something directly cut and milled out for your gun and your optic, that's the best. The second best that I've ever seen of all the guns I've ever mounted optics on for handguns, the Canik has the best mounting system. It is a beefy, robust mounting system. Unlike most guns, it comes with a bunch of plates, and good plates, like thick, beefy plates. It has a few ridges put into the design so that putting all that stress on the screws, if you drop that optic or beat that optic or use that gun as a blunt instrument to bludgeon somebody, not putting all that force on those small screws like other designs. It's a good gun, a good design. The trigger on those is about as good as you're going to probably make a factory striker-fired handgun trigger. It is a big, full-size, I would even say plus-size, fighting handgun, which is fine. Again, I'm not CCWing this handgun. Canik Rival, just a great gun. It's not often that a new handgun impresses me, and it's almost never that a new striker-fired handgun impresses me, but the Canik Rival really impressed me. And even the older iterations of the Canik I liked, but the Canik Rival, I was like, that's a nice handgun. The Canik Rival comes with the mounting plates. It also comes with a bunch of extras. It comes with a mag funnel, a mag well, which is awesome, which why not have it on this handgun? Again, you're not concealing it, at least not day to day. It comes with a holster. For that reason, I would probably go with a light for this one that was just in the bag with it, that I could easily mount on there. It already comes with the holster, and if you're doing this and saving money, you're probably not wanting to go out and spend $120 on a custom cut light holster for it. Comes with an actually good holster. So I'd get a light that I could take on and off easily. And same thing, I believe it comes with an extended mag and a regular mag. It might come with 3 mags, but I get a couple more extended mags. For this one, I probably get more mags because they're probably not a common magazine, so I'd get a few. Put those in the bag with it. Since the Canik will pretty much come with adapter plates for almost all that I'm aware of common modern optics, really take your pick on that one. You want a Trijicon RMR, as long as you can co-witness, you want to go a little bit cheaper. Swamp Fox is on the market. To be fair, I have like 0 experience with them. If you can co-witness and you have backup iron sights and you're on a budget, maybe. Hollow Sun would be my number 1 pick for this if you're doing it and don't want to spend a ton of money. Except for Trijicon, in my experience, Hollow Suns hold up the best. And with that being said, I haven't ever run or seen many people run the Leopold Delta Point. I think that's a good optic. It's a great optic. I just don't have a lot of first-hand experience with it. Of the ones that I have a lot of experience with, the Hollow Suns for the money are usually pretty good. Sometimes they break, but usually they're pretty good. And again, if you have backup co-witness iron sights, then there you go. I mentioned the striker fire to get if you were a Glock person or the one to get if you were on a budget. If I were going to put a striker fire handgun in here, it'd be the M17. I like the M17. I own an M17. I got it primarily because I got a good deal on it. It was like $400 and something. And I wanted to I'd been training on an optic with a 22 and realized that it was better, and I wanted to switch to it, and I wanted a gun. Honestly, I kind of got it as a beater. One, I wanted to test out the M17 because it's the military's new handgun, and two, I wanted a cheap gun that I could run a lot of rounds through and shoot and train with. I did both of those well, and it really impressed me, the M17. I have to admit, if you listen to the episode I did, the gun I hate to love. I'm really impressed with that, and if I had to throw one in there, it would be the M17. It's a full-size fighting handgun. Obviously, it's a military's new handgun. Mine has a Trijicon RMR on it. I run the Trijicon RMRs that run off radiation. They don't take batteries. I don't generally like batteries. I have co-witness sights. I'd have the regular flush-up mag and a couple more of the extended mags. A good stream light, in my case, the M3, which is discontinued, but I love that light. But a similar Surefire or Streamlight or something like it. Have to run a Blackhawk Omnivore holster or get a custom Kydex holster made if that was going to be my bug out bag gun, my little bailout bag gun. If I were going to pick a striker fired handgun, that would be the one that I would put in there. Now let's talk about a different scenario. We talked about that berry picking bear kind of gun in this bag. Would one of those guns work for this? Yeah, sure they would. Especially that FNX 45 Tactical with maybe some hard cast, buffalo bore loads. Yeah, it wouldn't be bad. But if you're going out for that in this bag, why not a Bible and a 44? Good song, by the way. But for any of these loadouts in your bailout bag, probably ought to have a Bible in there. But for this scenario in the country, in bear country, things like that, why not a 44? And I think you could get some ridiculously long guns that wouldn't fit in a bag like this, depending on the bag. So I'd stick with a 4-inch 44 mag, of course stainless, because, stainless. I'd probably go with a Ruger Red Hawk. I know they make the Super Red Hawk, but I think the Red Hawk, in my opinion, is probably a better balanced gun. Ruger is known for kind of overbuilding their revolvers. I think the Ruger Red Hawk is already kind of overbuilt in a good way. The Super Red Hawk's even beefier. I don't think you need that in this scenario. I would go with a Ruger Red Hawk 4-inch stainless. Bam. Simple. You're not probably mounting a light to it. You're not putting an optic on it. So that would be my pick for that. Stainless steel, Ruger, 44 mag, 4-inch. Maybe 3. I like a 3-inch barrel if you could find one. Be a great pick for that, and a couple of other scenarios. What about an honorable mention? How about the 5.7? I could really see some merit to the 5.7 in this guise. I'm going to talk primarily about the FN 5.7. I know the Ruger 5.7 exists. I don't know that I would trust it, but I would trust the FN 5.7. It's been around a long time. It is a military handgun. I would trust it, and it has a lot of merit in this scenario. 20 rounds in a regular standard magazine, and here's the thing, it's light. You want a super light kit with a lot of firepower, this might be it. Also, it's not a conventional handgun round, and that's bad in some ways and it's good in some ways, so it really depends on what you want. If your goal is to have quite a bit of firepower and you're going to do a really long arduous hike on some really mountainous steep country and you want your kit to be light, this might be the gun for that. If all you're taking a long overland excursion is this satchel, that's a light gun with a lot of firepower. Or let's say you're on the Mexican border. Things seem to be heating up down there. Not that they have been cold for a while, but maybe you stumble across some people you shouldn't be stumbling across. On your quad out riding fences, or working on a ranch out there, or just driving a back road looking for coyotes, and you stumble upon a drug deal you probably shouldn't have. That's going to give you a flatter trajectory than a common handgun round. It's going to give you quite a bit more firepower. So I'd say honorable mention to the FN 5.7. I don't own one. I've never owned one. I'm not a gun collector. It would be cool. It would be a cool handgun to own. I will submit that. And I do believe they just came out with an optics ready one. I don't know how good the mounting system is on there. If it was like an afterthought, it was actually thought out and done well. But one of those would be a good option. Ammo selection will be critical. Now, as a civilian, you're not allowed to own the, what I would call the good armor-piercing ammo for that, which might come in handy in these scenarios. But I do think some boutique manufacturers make some pretty good, like, copper rounds that you might want to look into or something. Anyway, honorable mention to the 5.7. I think it would have some merit in one of these bags. If you have a top pick I didn't mention, A good way to do that is listening on iTunes, scroll down and leave a review of the podcast. Say, hey, good podcast, this episode, my pick would be. If you want everybody to see it. Don't think there's a way to do that on Spotify. And there are plenty of other platforms in there you may or may not be able to do that on. Anyway, if you want to contact me for whatever reason, you can contact me the best way, goodshepherdtraining.com. Again, goodshepherdtraining.com. With that, men, I want to say thanks for listening. So, got a little sidetracked there. I just heard something rustling outside in the forest. Ran out in my silkies and my 357 to see if it was something maybe we could kill and eat. Or maybe just kill for fun, if it's legal. Could have been a skunk, could have been a coon, could have been a bear, who knows. Didn't find it. Anyway, tactical tip of the day. Thus far we've talked about the bailout bag and a big fighting handgun. But let's say you carry a full-size fighting handgun day to day. Maybe you want to flip-flop that for this. Put in your super small gun in here. Let's say that you carry a Glock 17. You got a bunch of extra mags in here. You want to put a Glock 26 in here. Because maybe you got to change outfits and you're heading somewhere doing something where you can't have that full-size gun. But you can have a much smaller Glock 26. Takes the same mags. Maybe you want a smaller gun in here. Maybe you want a really small gun in here. My ultralight 357 weighs like 11 point something ounces. Again, E.D.C. day to day, I carry a full-size fighting handgun. But I might, or you might, more importantly, want a very small handgun in here. Maybe you want a N.R.A. mini revolver in here. That way you're not completely unarmed. If you have to do something, you might not be able to conceal a full-size fighting handgun. Another thing you might consider having in this bag, consider this the next tactical tip, even if you don't have one of these bags. In your center console, in your glove box, a good backup belt. Belts aren't just belts, they can be straps for a lot of different things. You should have a tourniquet, and I don't recommend going to this for a tourniquet, but I have literally firsthand used a good belt as a tourniquet, a belt and an ice scraper, in a real world situation. Never recommend them over a purpose-built tourniquet, but they certainly work if you have nothing or you've ran out of your good tourniquets. Extra belt in there, especially let's say you wear like a fancy dress belt, you wear business casual day to day. You might want a little bit beefier belt if you're going to strap on that beefier handgun. Sometimes not even about the handgun, you just want a beefier belt. Anyway, a couple of little things there for the tactical tip of the day. Tactical verse of the day. Psalm 51. Be gracious to me, O God, according to your mercy, according to your great compassion. Blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin. For I know my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me. Against you, you only, have I sinned, and done what is evil in your sight. Couple of things there, men. Nothing you do is hidden from God. He knows your actions done in public, done in secret. He knows even the thoughts and intents of the heart. Nothing is hidden before God, and all sin is first primarily against God. What is sin? Sin is transgression of the law. What law? God's law. I don't know what kind of gun you might need or what kind of gun you might use, but I know that you need a Savior. It's about sin and transgression. We all do it. We've all done it. We all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Whatever kind of gunfighter you are, whatever kind of tools you use, whatever kind of warrior God has made you to be. You may go through your whole life and never need a gun. You may go through your whole life and never need a tourniquet. But you certainly, if you draw breath, need a Savior. Because we all sin. And that Savior is Jesus Christ. Turn to Him and be saved. With that, men, thanks for listening and have a blessed day.